I launched the bakery I'd always dreamed of and invited my whole family to the grand opening. Not a single one came. They all chose Rosy's promotion party instead. As I locked up by myself, Dad messaged me, "We need to talk about the bakery." Can you imagine pouring your entire heart and soul, every waking moment for years, into building your lifelong dream, only to have the people who are supposed to love you most actively choose to celebrate someone else's success on your grand opening day? My name is Eileen, and at 32, I finally opened Sweet Gatherings, the bakery I had envisioned since I was a little girl. But on that momentous morning, as I fought back a crushing wave of tears, my phone started buzzing, not with congratulatory messages, but with a tidal wave of Instagram photos from my sister Rosy's promotion party, a party every single family member, without hesitation, had picked over my dream. What the hell happened next? Before I tell you how my own family delivered a gut punch to my spirit on what should have been the happiest day of my life, let me tell you a little bit about them. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a home where success wasn't just encouraged, it was a non-negotiable demand, etched into the very foundation of our existence. My father, James, a cutthroat corporate attorney at Whitman and Associates, one of the Pacific Northwest's most prestigious law firms, wasn't just busy, he was ruthless. He'd clock 80-hour weeks, miss most of my school events, but never once failed to remind us that his sacrifices were the bedrock of our family's prosperity, the invisible shield that maintained our lofty position in society. My mother, Diane, a formidable hospital administrator, didn't just manage our household. She ran it with clinical efficiency, scheduling our activities with the same precision she used to organize entire hospital departments. Every achievement earned a neat checkmark in her mental ledger of family success, with extra points awarded for accomplishments that could be casually dropped at charity galas or country club brunches. And then there were my siblings. My older brother, Tyler, now 35, didn't just follow Dad's footsteps, he sprinted into the high-stress world of finance. By 25, he was an investment banker in New York, his presence marked by expensive but impersonal birthday gifts and brief, almost ghost-like appearances at holidays, where his conversations revolved solely around multi-million-dollar deals and market trends I barely understood. My younger sister, Rosy, 29, was the marketing prodigy. She didn't just climb the corporate ladder at TechFusion, one of those trendy tech companies brimming with beanbag chairs and cold brew on tap. She practically pole vaulted it. Mom and Dad would practically beam with pride, their faces alight at every promotion, every salary increase, every company perk Rosy flaunted on her meticulously curated social media. And then there was me, the middle child. The anomaly, perpetually with flour under her fingernails. My true love affair with baking began not in a competitive classroom, but at 8 years old, in my grandma Eliza's cozy kitchen. While my parents relentlessly pushed Tyler and Rosy toward academic competitions and prestigious internships, Grandma Eliza taught me the quiet, intuitive art of baking, how to feel the perfect consistency of dough between my fingers, how to coax yeast into life, how to decorate with gentle precision. When school stress mounted, she'd invite me to her small house on the outskirts of town, and we would spend hours side by side, the air thick with the scent of cinnamon and warm butter. Baking is love made visible, she would say, her gnarled hands gently guiding mine as we shaped cinnamon rolls. When someone takes a bite of something you baked, they are tasting your heart. These words weren't just pretty, they lodged deep in my soul, like seeds, and grew roots, strong and true. While my siblings collected shiny trophies and impressive certificates, I collected recipes. I meticulously documented every technique Grandma Eliza taught me in a special notebook, adding my own adaptations in the margins. I experimented with flavors and textures, bringing my creations to school bake sales where they always, without fail, sold out first. My family, however, viewed my burgeoning passion as cute, but ultimately inconsequential. "It's a nice hobby, Eileen," my mother would say, emphasizing the word hobby in that particular tone that made it crystal clear it was not to be confused with a career. But you need to focus on activities that build your college applications. The implication was clear. Dreams were for children. Success was for adults. During my junior year of high school, desperate to immerse myself further, I started working at Bailey's Bake Shop after school. Mrs. Bailey, the owner, quickly became my second mentor. Where Grandma Eliza had taught me the soulful traditions passed down through generations, Mrs. Bailey showed me the pragmatic, thriving business side of baking. She patiently taught me about profit margins, inventory management, and the delicate art of customer service. Most importantly, she showed me, with living proof, that my dream could, in fact, be a viable career. "You have magic in your hands, Eileen," Mrs. Bailey told me one afternoon after watching me decorate a particularly challenging wedding cake with effortless grace. "Not everyone can do what you do. Never let anyone convince you that your talent is just a hobby." When college application season rolled around, my parents, predictably, pushed me toward pre-med programs. You've always been good at chemistry, my father reasoned, as if my innate talent for balancing complex flavors and understanding the chemical reactions in baking somehow translated to a burning desire to become a doctor. I compromised, majoring in business with a minor in food science, thinking this combination would prepare me for my true goal while appeasing my parents, at least for a while. Then, during my sophomore year, Grandma Eliza passed away. At the reading of her will, I was stunned, a lump forming in my throat as I learned she had left me her modest savings account. To Eileen, the will stated, in her familiar, gentle prose, who understands that the most important ingredients in any recipe are passion and love. The inheritance wasn't enough to open a bakery immediately, not by a long shot, but it was seed money. More than that, it was a profound vote of confidence from the one person who had always, unequivocally, believed in my dream. After college, while my siblings launched their impressive, high-flying careers, I began my own gritty ascent. I worked 3 jobs, a barista in the mornings, an office assistant during the day, and baking custom cakes and pastries from my tiny apartment kitchen on weekends. This wasn't just work, it was a relentless grind, every ounce of my energy poured into accumulating the capital I needed. My family viewed this phase as my finding myself period, a temporary detour before I eventually gave up and pursued a real career. Law school applications are still an option, Dad would mention casually during holiday dinners, as if presenting me with an obvious escape route. My firm is always looking for bright young associates. Mom would chime in, the hospital has a management training program, Eileen. I could put in a good word. But their words bounced off me. My vision for sweet gatherings grew clearer, more vibrant, with each passing year. I didn't want just any bakery. I wanted a place that embodied the warmth, the solace, the sheer joy I felt in Grandma Eliza's kitchen. A gathering spot where people could connect over delicious food made with genuine care. I envisioned a space with comfortable, mismatched seating, exposed brick, and the aroma of fresh coffee and baking bread, where neighbors would become friends, where families would create traditions around my seasonal specialties. I wanted display cases filled with both innovative creations and perfected classics, many of them adaptations of Grandma Eliza's cherished recipes. For 7 long, arduous years after college, I worked and saved, researched locations, refined my intricate business plan, and painstakingly built my recipe portfolio. Each step brought me closer, even as my family continued to view it as a phase I would eventually outgrow. Finally, after years of relentless searching, I found the perfect location for sweet gatherings. It was a charming corner storefront in a neighborhood that was buzzing with revitalization, brimming with potential. It had large, beautiful windows that flooded the space with natural light, promising a warm glow. The building itself had character, with exposed brick walls and original hardwood floors that, though needing refinishing, would be absolutely stunning with some love and care. Most importantly, it was within my budget, thanks to Grandma Eliza's inheritance and my years of dedicated, sometimes agonizing, saving. When I called my family to share the exhilarating news about signing the lease, their reactions were exactly as I had expected, yet disappointing nonetheless. A retail lease in this economy? Dad's voice, sharp and laced with thinly veiled disapproval, carried the same tone he used when discussing risky investments with clients. Send me the paperwork before you sign anything. Better yet, I could invest in this venture and help guide it properly. I knew what that meant. Dad's investment would come with an iron grip of control, his corporate vision superseding mine until sweet gatherings became utterly unrecognizable from my dream. Mom's response was equally disheartening, though cloaked in concern. Honey, the restaurant industry has such a high failure rate. It's not too late to apply to graduate school. I ran into Dr. Levinson last week, and he mentioned their hospital administration program is still accepting applications. When I called Rosy, her backhanded compliments cut deeper than outright criticism. Wow, going full steam ahead with the baking thing. That's so brave of you. I could never risk financial security for a passion project. But that's what makes you special, right? You've always marched to your own drum. The sarcasm was barely concealed. Tyler, as always, was the hardest to reach, perpetually between meetings or flights. When I finally got him on the phone, his response was brief, entirely business-focused, and devoid of any genuine excitement. Send me your business plan and 5-year projections. Did you account for first-year losses? What's your marketing budget? Have you stress-tested your financial model? No congratulations, no excitement, just immediate skepticism and an implicit assumption of inevitable failure. Despite their reactions, which felt like a cold shower on my burning enthusiasm, I threw myself into preparing the space. I coordinated with contractors for necessary renovations, navigated the bewildering labyrinth of health permits and business licenses, and refined my menu, making sure every recipe was perfect. Every night, I fell into bed physically exhausted, but profoundly fulfilled, knowing I was one day closer to realizing my vision. During this period, isolated from my family's understanding, I began forming genuine connections with neighboring business owners. Annie from Bloom and Grow Flowers next door stopped by regularly, bringing coffee and much-needed encouragement, her kind eyes always seeing the hope in my dusty, half-renovated space. Marcus from Cornerstone Books across the street, a quiet but insightful man, offered invaluable marketing advice and promised to stock my pastries in his Reading Nook cafe. "We newcomers need to stick together," Annie said one day as we sat on paint buckets, sipping lukewarm coffee. "This neighborhood has real community potential, and businesses like yours will be the heart of it." Their belief was a lifeline. As opening day finally approached, a desperate hope for connection spurred me to create a special menu featuring items specifically inspired by my family. I hoped these namesake creations would communicate what I struggled to express in words, that despite our vast differences, they remained important to me, that I still longed for their approval. I developed James's Power Breakfast Scone with espresso and dark chocolate for Dad, Diane's Elegant Earl Grey Cake with lavender buttercream for Mom, Tyler's Wall Street Walnut Brownies with decadent cream cheese swirls, and Rosy's Marketing Maven Macarons in bright, Instagram-worthy colors. At the center of my display plan was a special corner dedicated to Grandma Eliza. I framed her photo alongside her original, handwritten recipe cards for cinnamon rolls and apple pie, the very first recipes she ever taught me. I lovingly renovated her old wooden rolling pin, worn smooth by decades of use, and placed it on a custom shelf, a quiet, powerful tribute to her enduring influence. 3 weeks before opening, I sent personalized invitations to each family member. I chose thick, luxurious cream cardstock with elegant gold embossing, investing more than I probably should have on the design, hoping its formality would convey the gravity of the occasion. Each invitation included a heartfelt personal note, expressing how much their presence would mean to me on this momentous day. The responses trickled in, laced with varying degrees of non-commitment. "We'll try to make it if court adjourns early," Dad texted, as if squeezing me into a busy docket. "Penciling it in, but board meetings that week might run long," Mom replied, her words as precise as a surgeon's incision. "Sounds fun. Work is crazy right now, but we'll see what I can do," came Rosy's response, dripping with implied busyness. Tyler simply said, "In meetings that week. We'll check calendar." I tried desperately not to let their lukewarm responses dampen my excitement. Perhaps seeing the finished bakery, in all its glory, would change their perspective. Maybe tasting the creations named in their honor would finally help them understand my passion, my soul poured into flour and sugar. Then, one agonizing week before my grand opening, Rosy called with her news. I got the promotion to senior marketing director. She squealed into the phone, her voice brimming with unadulterated joy. "The company is throwing a huge party next Saturday to celebrate. Everyone will be there. You'll come, right?" My heart literally sank, a cold, heavy stone in my chest, as the horrifying realization dawned. Her massive celebration was scheduled for the exact same day as my grand opening. Before I could even respond, my phone buzzed, practically vibrating with messages from my parents. "Did you hear about Rosy's amazing news? So proud," Mom texted. "Dinner reservation at Morton's after Rosa's promotion party. Family table for 5, came Dad's blunt message. I stared at my phone, the implication blindingly clear. They had automatically included me in their celebration plans for Rosy without even acknowledging the devastating conflict with my grand opening, which they had known about for weeks. When I gently, haltingly, reminded them of the direct conflict, the responses were swift and clarifying, cutting me to the core. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for your sister," Mom replied, her tone brooking no argument. "You can have a soft opening another day," Dad suggested, as if years of painstaking work, planning, and financial investment could simply be rescheduled like a dental appointment. I swallowed the bitter pill of disappointment and, with a heavy heart, forced myself to focus on the final preparations. The menu was perfected, the space was absolutely beautiful, marketing materials were distributed, and a small, hopeful write-up even appeared in the local neighborhood paper. I ordered extra ingredients, prepared contingency plans for every possible mishap, and scheduled my opening day in meticulous 15-minute increments to ensure everything would be perfect. The night before opening, I stood alone in the completed space, taking in the breathtaking realization of my dream. The display cases gleamed, waiting to be filled with my lovingly crafted creations. The tables were set with small vases, ready for fresh flowers. The coffee machine gleamed on the counter, promising warmth and welcome. Despite my family's profound lack of enthusiasm, I allowed a fragile thread of hope to bloom. Maybe seeing the finished bakery, in all its tangible glory, would finally change everything. I woke at 3:30 in the morning on opening day, too excited, too nervous, too hopeful to sleep another wink. Following the minute-by-minute schedule I had painstakingly created, I began bringing my bakery to life. the kitchen filled with the comforting, intoxicating scents of vanilla, cinnamon, and freshly baked bread as I prepared the day's offerings. Each pastry was crafted with precision and love, from the delicate, jewel-like fruit tarts to the hearty, rustic, artisanal loaves. By 7, the display cases were a work of art, filled with rows of perfectly arranged pastries, each labeled with charming, handwritten cards describing the ingredients and inspiration. The family-inspired creations occupied prime positions, ready to be appreciated by the very people who had, however distantly, inspired them. At 7:30, Annie arrived with fresh, vibrant flower arrangements for each table and a special, overflowing bouquet for the counter. "These are on the house," she insisted, hugging me tightly. "Today is your day to shine, Eileen." Marcus appeared shortly after with a handmade sign for his bookshop window, brightly directing customers to the grand opening. "I told all my regulars to stop by," he said, placing a small, wrapped package on the counter. "A business-warming gift. Open it later." As the clock crept towards 9 a.m., the official opening time, I constantly checked my phone. No messages from my family. I sent a hopeful group text with a photo of the ready bakery. "All set for opening. Hope to see you soon." No response. At 9, I unlocked the doors, flipped the sign to open, and with a nervous flutter in my stomach, welcomed my first customers. A steady stream of neighbors and curious locals filled the morning hours. They ordered coffee, purchased pastries, and many stayed to enjoy their treats at the comfortable tables, the soft hum of conversation filling the air. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, like warm sunshine. "These cinnamon rolls are the best I have ever had," one woman exclaimed, her eyes wide with delight. "I am definitely making this my regular morning stop," a man in a business suit declared, his face radiating contentment. Between serving customers, my eyes constantly darted to the door, my heart leaping with every chime of the bell above the entrance, hoping it would be a family member. Each time my phone buzzed, I checked it immediately, only to find notifications from service providers or congratulatory messages from friends, whose kindness felt like a distant, muted echo compared to the roar of expectation I held for my own blood. By 11, I had served several dozen customers, the bakery alive with activity, but the faces I most desperately wanted to see remained absent. I sent another text to my family. "Great turnout so far. Special treats with your names on them waiting for you." Still no response. At noon, during a brief lull, a flicker of morbid curiosity made me check social media. I immediately wished I hadn't. My feed was flooded with photos from Rosy's promotion party, already in full, celebratory swing despite the early hour. There was Dad, impeccably dressed, raising a champagne toast in a sleek, opulent hotel ballroom, his face beaming with corporate pride. There was Mom, her expression one of immense satisfaction, adjusting a "Congratulations, Director Rosy" banner. And there was Tyler, who had apparently flown in for the occasion, his arm around Rosy as they posed for a professional photographer, looking every inch the picture of success. The caption on my mother's post, however, stabbed deepest, a cruel twist of the knife. "So proud of our successful daughter." The whole family gathered to celebrate this incredible achievement. The whole family. Except me. I put my phone away, shoved it deep into my apron pocket, and plastered on a bright, professional smile as the afternoon crowd began to arrive. The initial morning rush had slowed, and though a steady trickle of customers continued, it was becoming increasingly clear that opening day sales would not meet my projections. Each hour that passed with empty tables felt like a personal failure, despite the genuine enthusiasm of those who did visit. A local reporter who had promised to cover the opening, Lucy Chan from the Neighborhood Chronicle, arrived around 2. As she interviewed me about the bakery, her sharp, perceptive eyes observed my frequent, anxious glances toward the door and my increasingly hollow smiles. "Family couldn't make it," she asked gently, her voice full of empathy. I considered lying, inventing an urgent commitment, but opted for a simple, painful truth. They had another commitment. Lucy's eyes softened with understanding. She deftly shifted her interview questions, focusing on my profound passion for baking and my vision for sweet gatherings as a true community space. Her unexpected kindness nearly broke my professional composure, but I managed to maintain my smile until she left, promising a feature in the next edition. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the truth was an unavoidable, bitter pill. Not a single family member had come. Not one had even called or texted during business hours. The special pastries I had created in their honor, those carefully named tokens of my hope, remained largely unsold, their handwritten name cards a painful, constant reminder of my naive, heartbreaking hope. As closing time approached, customers dwindled to none. I began the cleanup process with mechanical, almost robotic movements, washing dishes, wiping counters until they gleamed, and carefully storing unsold pastries. The day's sales had barely covered basic expenses, certainly nothing more. Social media posts from Rosy's celebration continued to appear, each one a fresh, stinging wound. Videos of speeches, photos of expensive gifts, images of the family I had been born into, celebrating without me, as if I had simply ceased to exist. At 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before closing, my phone finally buzzed. A text from my father. We need to discuss the bakery. No congratulations, no explanation for their glaring absence, no acknowledgement of my achievement or their broken promises to attend, just a cold, businesslike statement that implied problems needed solving, problems that required their intervention. As I turned the sign to closed and locked the front door, the torrent of emotions I had been suppressing all day finally broke through. Alone in my beautiful, silent bakery, surrounded by the physical manifestation of my dream and the undeniable evidence of my family's profound indifference, I sank to the floor and sobbed, the sound echoing in the empty space. I don't know how long I sat there, consumed by tears, when a gentle knock on the glass door startled me. Annie and Marcus stood outside, their faces etched with concern, peering in. I quickly wiped my tears, took a shaky breath, and let them in. We thought you might need friends tonight, Annie said softly, holding up a bottle of champagne, a small, knowing smile on her face. First day of business calls for a proper celebration, whether it was perfect or not, Marcus added, ever pragmatic, producing 3 glasses from a tote bag. As we sat at one of the bakery tables, toasting my new venture despite the day's crushing disappointments, a profound realization dawned on me. The family I had been born into might never truly understand or value my dream. But perhaps, just perhaps, I was finding a new kind of family, a chosen family, right here in this neighborhood, with people who showed up when it truly mattered. The morning after my grand opening, I arrived at the bakery early to prepare for my second day of business, determined to push forward despite yesterday's profound disappointment. I focused on adjusting my offerings based on what had sold well, striving for efficiency, trying to put one foot in front of the other. I was elbow deep in dough, kneading out my frustrations when the bells above the door jingled. Glancing at my watch, I realized with a jolt that I had forgotten to lock the front door, and it was still 30 minutes before opening time. Sorry, we're not open yet, I called out, not looking up from my work, my voice still thick with sleep and lingering sadness. That's apparent from the empty tables, my father's crisp, unmistakable voice replied, sharp enough to cut through the flour dust. My head snapped up. There, filing into my bakery like a corporate delegation arriving for an unscheduled audit, was my entire family. Dad led the way, impeccably dressed in a business suit, a formidable leather portfolio tucked under one arm. Mom followed, her critical gaze sweeping the space, noting every detail with the same clinical precision she used when inspecting hospital departments, her lips a thin, disapproving line. Rosy entered next, her designer handbag swinging from her elbow, stylish sunglasses perched on her head despite the cloudy morning. A tablet in her hand displayed Tyler's face, apparently video calling in from New York, his image a stark, almost ethereal presence. What are you doing here? I asked, wiping flour from my hands, my voice barely a whisper of surprise. Family meeting, Dad announced, his tone leaving no room for argument. He selected the largest table, directly under Grandma Eliza's display, and gestured for everyone to sit. We need to discuss the bakery situation. I'm preparing for customers, I said, glancing frantically at the clock. We open in 30 minutes. Mom, ever precise, her tone sympathetic, but her words cutting like a surgical blade, chimed in. Based on what we observed yesterday, I doubt you'll be overwhelmed with business. I flinched, the words a direct hit to my already bruised ego, but tried desperately to maintain composure. You observed? None of you were here yesterday. Rosy quipped, tapping her phone, her eyes never leaving the screen. Social media exists for a reason, Eileen. The geotags and check-ins for this place were hardly breaking the internet. My brother's tiny, disembodied voice emerged from the tablet, cool and analytical. I reviewed the neighborhood demographics and foot traffic patterns. This location has problematic fundamentals for a specialty food business. They had been monitoring my opening day from afar, dissecting its perceived failure while simultaneously celebrating Rosy. The realization added fresh, searing pain to yesterday's wounds. Dad opened his portfolio and removed a stack of papers, sliding them across the table with the practiced ease of a lawyer delivering an indictment. We have been discussing your situation, and we believe we have a solution that will minimize damage. My situation? I echoed, a slow, angry simmer beginning to churn beneath my shock. Eileen, honey, Mom leaned forward, her voice dropping to the gentle, almost sorrowful tone she used when delivering bad news to hospital patients, a tone designed to soften the blow. We all understand the appeal of following a dream, but sometimes dreams need to be adjusted to align with reality. Dad, seizing the momentum, continued, we can help you sell this place before you lose everything. He slid documents across the table. I have contacted a commercial real estate agent who specializes in restaurant properties. He believes with minimal losses, we can get you out of this lease and recoup some of your investment. I stared at the papers, a cold dread washing over me as I realized they were pre-filled listing agreements, ready for my signature. They had prepared these, drafted my exit, before even seeing my bakery in operation for a full day. Mom reached into her designer purse and withdrew several folded papers. I took the liberty of completing medical school applications for 3 programs that accept late admissions. Your undergraduate grades were strong enough that with the right personal statement explaining this detour, you could begin classes this fall. Tyler's digital face on the screen looked almost bored, his voice devoid of emotion. I have run the numbers, Eileen. Based on industry averages and your location, you are looking at insolvency within 4 months. 6, if you drastically cut expenses, which would further compromise quality and accelerate the failure cycle. Rosy, who had been taking photos of my bakery while they talked, finally joined the conversation, a smug, pitying look on her face. Look, it's not all bad news. I convinced my boss to open an entry-level position in our marketing department. The pay's not great, but with your background, you could move up quickly. I'm not supposed to show favoritism, but she shrugged, her expression making it clear this was a major concession, offered out of sheer familial pity. They continued talking, their voices overlapping, outlining my failure and presenting their ready-made solutions as if I were a child who had merely stubbed her toe. My dream, my years of relentless work, reduced to a problem requiring their professional intervention. My passion, my sweat, my tears, dismissed as a misguided phase. Their absence yesterday, reframed as rational detachment rather than hurtful abandonment. As they spoke, the bells above the door jingled again, and Mrs. Bailey walked in, carrying a small gift basket. She stopped short at the sight of my family, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. Eileen, dear, I came to congratulate you on your opening. Is this your family? She asked, approaching with a warm, genuine smile. Dad glanced up, his expression instantly shifting to the dismissive condescension he reserved for service personnel. We are in the middle of a private discussion. Perhaps you could return during business hours. Mrs. Bailey's smile did not waver. I am Adelaide Bailey, owner of Bailey's Bake Shop. Well, Bailey's Bake Shops now, since we have expanded to 5 locations. She extended her hand, which Dad, whose eyes had widened imperceptibly, suddenly seemed much more interested in shaking. I have known Eileen since she was 16 and recognized her exceptional talent immediately. The atmosphere in the bakery shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly. Success was a language my family understood, and Mrs. Bailey spoke it fluently, her words imbued with quiet authority. Mom straightened in her chair. Rosy lowered her phone, her carefully curated social media momentarily forgotten. Even Tyler's expression on the tablet screen sharpened with interest. 5 locations, Dad repeated, a flicker of genuine respect in his voice. That is quite an accomplishment in such a competitive industry. Indeed, Mrs. Bailey responded, her gaze unwavering, placing the gift basket gently on the counter. Which is why I have complete faith in Eileen's success. Her creativity and business acumen remind me of myself at her age, though I dare say her technical skills surpass what mine were then. She turned to me, her eyes filled with genuine pride. I wanted to bring this welcome basket and let you know how sorry I am to have missed your opening. My flight from the baking conference in Chicago was delayed. The contrast between Mrs. Bailey's sincere regret for missing one single day and my family's complete, resounding absence despite weeks of notice hung in the air like the scent of burnt sugar, thick and suffocating. You know, Mrs. Bailey continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension, Eliza spoke of her granddaughter's talent constantly at our community baking club. She always said you would surpass all expectations, Eileen. She believed your understanding of how food brings people together was your true gift. A memory surfaced then, sharp and painful, Grandma Eliza trying, so patiently, so hopefully, to convince my parents to attend my high school culinary showcase. Their polite refusals, her disappointed but unsurprised expression. She had always known. She had always known they would never truly understand my passion, my path. Something inside me, raw and vulnerable, broke in that moment, but then, miraculously, it reformed, stronger and more clearly defined. Why did none of you come yesterday? I asked, my voice trembling but firm, interrupting whatever financial point Tyler was making through the tablet screen. An uncomfortable, heavy silence fell, thick enough to cut with a knife. My family exchanged quick, familiar glances of silent communication, a lifetime of unspoken messages passing between them. We told you about Rosy's promotion party, Mom finally said, her tone defensive. It was a conflict we could not avoid, Dad added, his gaze avoiding mine. The company CEO was there, Rosy pointed out, her voice rising in justification. It was a career-defining moment. I shook my head, a slow, deliberate movement. The party started at noon. My opening began at 9. You could have come for even 30 minutes. One of you. Any of you. More excruciating silence. Just tell me the truth, I pressed, my voice gaining strength. For once, be honest about why my bakery, my dream, was not worth even a brief appearance. It was Tyler who finally spoke the cold, hard truth, his digital presence perhaps making honesty easier, more detached. The family discussed it and decided that attending Rosy's event sent the right message about what achievements the family values. The words hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut. You discussed it, all of you. You made a collective decision not to support me. Mom flushed, a deep crimson spreading across her cheeks, but lifted her chin defensively. Real achievements deserve real celebrations, Eileen. Your sister has worked incredibly hard to earn her position. And I haven't? I gestured around at my bakery, my voice rising, fueled by a lifetime of quiet dismissal. I have worked 3 jobs for 7 years to save for this place. I have tested hundreds of recipes, built a business plan, secured a lease, navigated permits and health codes, and created something from nothing. How is that not an achievement? It's a nice effort, Eileen, Dad said, his patronizing tone like a dismissive pat on the head. But let us be realistic about the difference between opening a small bakery and becoming the youngest director in a Fortune 500 company. We are trying to help you, Mom added, her voice softening, but still manipulative. Before this situation becomes any more financially damaging. Dad tapped the listing agreements, the sound echoing in the sudden quiet. You have 2 choices, Eileen. You can sign these papers and begin the process of extracting yourself from this mistake with our help, or you can continue on this path without our support, financial or otherwise. The ultimatum hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I looked at each of their faces, seeing not malice, but a chilling, genuine belief that they were acting in my best interest. They truly could not see the value in what I had built because it did not align with their rigid, narrow definition of success. Mrs. Bailey placed a steadying, reassuring hand on my shoulder. The first customers of the day were already peering through the front windows, waiting patiently for opening time. I think you all need to leave now, I said quietly, my voice surprisingly steady. I have a business to run. Eileen, Dad began, his voice hardening, accustomed to immediate obedience. No, the word came out stronger, clearer, more resonant than I expected. For my entire life, you have treated my passion as a phase to outgrow, a hobby to indulge, or a mistake to correct. Not one of you showed up yesterday for the most important day of my professional life. Now you arrive with pre-prepared plans to dismantle my dream before it has even had a chance to succeed. I do not want your help. Not like this. I walked to the door, my legs feeling surprisingly strong, and held it open. Please leave. Customers are waiting. They gathered their papers slowly, their expressions ranging from shocked disbelief to hurt to barely concealed anger. As they filed past me, Dad paused, his voice low and menacing. This conversation is not over, he said quietly. When you are ready to be reasonable, call us. The bells jingled as they departed, leaving a profound silence in their wake. I took a deep, fortifying breath and welcomed my first customers with a professional smile that, for the first time, hid a new kind of storm raging within, not one of doubt, but of burgeoning resolve. The week following my family's impromptu, devastating intervention was the darkest, most emotionally draining period since opening suite gatherings. Despite my brave stand that morning, their words had planted insidious seeds of doubt, and those seeds grew larger, more suffocating, with each slow, quiet business day. My initial creative energy dimmed, replaced by a dull ache, and I found myself going through the motions of running the bakery, performing tasks with technical proficiency, but without the passionate spark that had previously fueled every batch of dough. Sales declined noticeably as my own enthusiasm waned. Customers, sensitive to atmosphere and authenticity, could sense the subtle difference in both the bakery's ambience and the food itself. Where once my pastries had been created with boundless joy and meticulous attention to detail, they were now produced with a weary expertise, lacking the special, intangible touch that had made them truly exceptional. Annie noticed the change immediately. She began stopping by daily, sometimes bringing lunch from the cafe down the street, other times just sitting quietly with me during slow periods, her presence a silent comfort. Marcus developed a habit of bringing afternoon coffee and staying to help with the inevitable, tedious cleanup. Their quiet, unwavering support kept me functioning, kept me from giving up entirely, when doing so seemed like the easiest, most logical path. My family, meanwhile, continued their relentless campaign of concerned pressure. Dad sent daily messages about the commercial real estate agent being ready when you are, each text a fresh jab. Mom forwarded information about medical school orientations with notes like, just keeping options open for you, dear. Rosy's social media featured not-so-subtle posts about knowing when to pivot and failing forward, clearly aimed at me. Tyler sent chillingly precise spreadsheets projecting my business decline with clinical accuracy, each cell a cold, hard reminder of their unwavering predictions. The most painful development came when I discovered, through a casual, almost apologetic comment from a distant cousin who came into the bakery one afternoon, that my family had actively discouraged extended relatives from supporting my business. "We were told you were figuring things out and preferred space to work through the process," she explained awkwardly, her eyes full of sympathy. "Otherwise, we all would have come to your opening." Each night, I returned to my tiny apartment, physically exhausted and emotionally drained. The bakery wasn't failing outright. Not yet, but it was struggling desperately to gain momentum. The neighborhood foot traffic wasn't converting to regular customers at the rate I had projected. The special touches that made sweet gatherings unique, the personalized interactions, the creative new recipes, required time and energy I was finding harder and harder to summon each day. 2 weeks after opening, while cleaning out a dusty storage cabinet to make room for additional supplies, my fingers brushed against a forgotten box. Inside was Grandma Eliza's recipe journal, its pages filled with her familiar, beautiful handwriting and countless margin notes. As I flipped through the beloved, familiar pages, a sealed envelope, crisp against the aged paper, fell out. My name was written on it in her shaky, distinctive script. I stared at it, a wave of emotion washing over me as I realized she must have placed it there before her death, perhaps anticipating that I would find it when I finally, truly opened my bakery. With trembling fingers, I broke the fragile seal and unfolded the letter inside. "My dearest Eileen," it began, her voice, clear and comforting, echoing in my mind as I read. "If you are reading this, you have found the courage to pursue your dream despite all obstacles. I always knew you would. From the first time your little hands pressed into dough beside mine, I saw in you a special gift, not just for baking, but for understanding how food brings joy and connection to others." Tears blurred my vision, warm and cleansing, as I continued reading. "Your parents and siblings may never understand your passion the way I do. They measure success by society's standards, while you measure it by the happiness you create. Neither is wrong, simply different. But never doubt that your path is valid and valuable. The world needs artists and nurturers as much as it needs executives and professionals." The letter continued, recounting specific, vivid memories of our time together, her keen observations of my growth as a baker, as a person. She mentioned recipes we had created, techniques she had taught me, and moments when my unique perspective had improved a traditional approach. "Remember, sweet girl, that success is not measured by others' recognition, but by the fulfillment you find in your work and the lives you touch with your gifts. My greatest joy has been watching you discover your passion. My greatest hope is that you will nurture it, even when others cannot see its worth." The letter ended with a postscript, simple yet profound, that broke the dam of my emotions. "The true secret ingredient in any recipe is love. Your bakery will succeed because no one understands this better than you." I sat on the storage room floor, clutching her letter, sobbing until no more tears would come. Then, for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift deep inside me. Grandma Eliza had always believed in me, not despite my different path, but because of it. Her validation had never been contingent on me conforming to traditional success metrics. She had loved me for exactly who I was. And in that moment, I finally felt the courage to do the same. The next morning, I woke with a clarity, a sense of purpose I had not felt since before the opening. I arrived at the bakery early, the lingering scent of old flour now infused with new determination. I began creating new recipes, not the family tribute items that had gone largely unsold, those desperate pleas for approval, but creations that reflected my true sensibilities, my authentic culinary voice. I developed a lemon lavender shortbread that captured the simple elegance I admired. I perfected a dark chocolate cherry sourdough that balanced sophisticated complexity with comforting warmth. I created a seasonal fruit galette with a messy, rustic appearance, but harmonious, exquisite flavors that made customers close their eyes in pure appreciation with the first bite. Annie noticed the change immediately when she stopped by that afternoon. "The light is back in your eyes, Eileen," she observed, her gaze perceptive. "What happened?" I showed her Grandma Eliza's letter and, with newfound emotional honesty, explained how it had reminded me why I started baking in the first place. "I've been trying to prove my worth to people who measure by a different scale," I admitted, the words flowing freely. "It's time I stopped seeking their validation." "You know," Annie said thoughtfully, her eyes sparkling with an idea. "We newcomers to this neighborhood are all struggling with the slow build of customer awareness. What if we created an event together? Something to showcase all our businesses and build community connection?" Marcus, arriving with his usual afternoon coffee, overheard the suggestion and immediately built upon it. "A community gathering. Exactly what your bakery is named for, Eileen. We could have readings from local authors at my shop, flower arranging mini classes from Annie, and featured pastries from you." The idea took root and began to grow, vibrant and exciting. For the first time since my disastrous opening day, I felt excitement bubbling up again. Not the desperate hope for family approval that had colored my grand opening, but something more sustainable, more authentic. A vision based on genuine community connection, rather than fleeting family validation. Lucy Chin, the reporter who had covered my opening, called that week to follow up on how business was progressing. When I mentioned the community event we were planning, she immediately offered to write a feature piece. "This is exactly the kind of local business cooperation the Chronicle likes to highlight," she explained. A collaborative event featuring multiple new businesses could draw attention from throughout the city, not just the neighborhood. That evening, I made the most difficult, yet liberating, decision since opening the bakery. I created a new signature item called Eliza's Legacy, a cinnamon roll with apple filling and brown butter glaze that combined elements from both of my grandmother's most beloved recipes. I placed it prominently in my display case, with a small, heartfelt card explaining its significance. What I did not do was create any new items bearing my immediate family's names, nor did I send them invitations to the upcoming community event. The announcement would go out on social media and through local channels, but I would no longer desperately seek their approval or attendance. As I locked up the bakery that night, my phone buzzed with another text from my father. "The commercial property market is heating up. We should list soon before values decline further. Call me." For the first time, I did not feel a stab of pain or doubt when reading his message. Instead, I felt the calm, unwavering certainty that I was choosing my own path forward. Whether Sweet Gatherings succeeded or failed, it would do so on my terms, as a reflection of my vision, rather than a compromise designed to win approval I might never receive. The 3 weeks following my discovery of Grandma Eliza's letter were filled with purposeful, exhilarating activity as Annie, Marcus, and I meticulously planned our community gathering event. What began as a simple cross-promotion grew organically into a neighborhood-wide celebration as other local businesses, sensing the genuine energy, eagerly joined our effort. The vintage clothing boutique down the street offered to provide outfits for a small, charming fashion show. The craft brewery around the corner created a special pale ale specifically brewed to complement my pastries. Even the yoga studio agreed to hold free mini-sessions in the park across from our shops, adding to the festive atmosphere. Rather than seeking external validation, I focused entirely on authentic connection. My social media strategy shifted dramatically from perfectly staged, pristine food photos to engaging, behind-the-scenes glimpses of bakery life. I shared stories about recipe development, including the hilarious failures and the sweet successes. I posted candid photos of the genuine relationships forming between regular customers who met at my tables, laughing over coffee and croissants. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive, with engagement increasing dramatically as people connected with the genuine journey rather than a polished, impersonal facade. Lucy Chen's feature article appeared in the Neighborhood Chronicle 2 weeks before our event, a beautifully written piece highlighting the collaborative spirit of the new businesses. Sweet Gatherings bakery owner Eileen Marshall exemplifies the community-focused entrepreneurship revitalizing the district, she wrote, her words singing with admiration. Her approach treats food not just as a product, but as a medium for human connection. The article was shared widely online, drawing attention from citywide publications and prominent food bloggers. My social media followers grew steadily, with many expressing palpable excitement about the upcoming event. For the first time, I felt my bakery gaining genuine, self-sustaining momentum, driven by authentic interest rather than obligation. I did not send my family invitations to the community gathering. I didn't need to. I posted public announcements on all platforms, just like any other business. Whether they attended would be entirely their choice, based on genuine interest rather than guilt or manipulation. The morning of the event arrived with perfect early autumn weather, crisp enough to make hot drinks appealing, but sunny enough for outdoor activities, a true gift from the universe. I had been baking since midnight, preparing an expanded menu featuring both customer favorites and special items created specifically for the day, including a prominent, glorious display of Eliza's Legacy cinnamon rolls. Annie arrived at dawn with elaborate, fragrant flower arrangements for both inside and outside the bakery, transforming the space into a vibrant haven. Marcus set up a whimsical book exchange card outside, filled with baking-themed titles. By 9 a.m., an hour before official opening, a line had already formed outside Sweet Gatherings, stretching down the block. "This is really happening," I whispered to Annie, my voice thick with awe, as we peeked out the window at the growing crowd. "This is what happens when you build something authentic, Eileen," she replied, squeezing my hand, her eyes shining. When we finally opened the doors, people flowed in steadily, filling the bakery with vibrant energy and joyous conversation. The display cases emptied faster than I could restock them, with Eliza's Legacy selling out within the first hour. Every table was filled with customers, sharing space with strangers who quickly became conversation partners, their laughter mingling with the aroma of coffee and cinnamon. The true community I had envisioned when naming my bakery was manifesting before my very eyes. Mid-morning, a familiar, beloved figure appeared at the counter. Mrs. Bailey stood there, beaming with pride, accompanied by 3 other women, elegant and self-assured. "Eileen, these are some of my former employees who have gone on to open their own successful bakeries," she introduced them, her voice full of warmth. "We have formed something of a mentorship network, and we would love to have you join us." As I thanked her, overwhelmed by the incredible offer, I noticed my phone buzzing with a flurry of notifications. Photos from the community gathering were being shared widely, including by prominent food influencers who had made the trip specifically to attend. The hashtag Sweet Gatherings was trending locally, with people posting images of their purchases and the lively, joyful atmosphere. By noon, it became clear that I had severely underestimated turnout. Pastry supplies were running dangerously low, despite my extensive preparation. I was considering an early closure when Lucy Chin arrived with Mark, the owner of Riverfront Restaurant, one of the most popular farm-to-table establishments in the city, renowned for its commitment to local ingredients. "Mark has an interesting proposition for you," Lucy said, after introducing us. He had been sampling my pastries, he explained, and wanted to discuss a potential partnership. Mark elaborated, saying he had been searching for a local bakery to supply bread and desserts for his acclaimed restaurant. "Your flavor profiles and commitment to quality ingredients align perfectly with our ethos," he said, his expression serious. "We would start with a small weekly order, but if it works well, we could expand significantly." As I discussed logistics with Mark, my mind buzzing with the possibilities, I spotted a woman photographing my menu and display case with a professional camera. She introduced herself as a representative from the Small Business Development Grant Committee. "We focus on innovative local businesses that contribute to neighborhood revitalization," she explained, handing me her card. "Your collaborative approach with neighboring businesses is exactly the kind of economic development model we seek to support. I would love to send you grant application materials." The day continued to exceed all expectations, a cascade of triumphs. By closing time, Sweet Gatherings had served more customers in one day than in the entire previous week. Every single pastry had sold, crucial business connections had formed, and most importantly, the bakery had firmly established itself as a genuine, vibrant community hub. As I tallied receipts that evening, my heart soaring with a new kind of pride, my phone buzzed with a text from an unexpected source. My father had sent a formal message. "Saw the coverage of your event today. Congratulations on the turnout. Available to discuss business growth strategies if interested." No warmth, no admission of his previous dismissiveness, but for the first time, an acknowledgement of observable success. It was followed by messages from the rest of the family in quick succession. "Mom, your bakery looked lovely in the photos online. The flower arrangements were exquisite. You always did have an eye for aesthetics. Rosy, that social media strategy is generating serious engagement. Clever approach targeting the community angle. My team was discussing it today. Tyler, wholesale accounts provide stable revenue streams. The restaurant connection is worth pursuing. Consent comparative analysis if helpful." Their messages, while tinged with a new, if hesitant, respect, still reflected their unchanged perspectives, each viewing my success through their particular professional lens rather than understanding what truly mattered to me. Yet there was a new tone of respect, however grudging, in their communications. I responded politely but briefly to each, neither desperately seeking their approval nor outright rejecting their tentative overtures. My focus remained firmly on building what I had started, rather than vindicating myself in their eyes. In the following weeks, Sweet Gatherings experienced steady, heartening growth. The partnership with Riverfront Restaurant provided a reliable wholesale income stream that stabilized finances, giving me a much-needed foundation. Several other restaurants reached out with similar inquiries, eager to sample my unique offerings. The small business grant application advanced to the final, promising round of consideration. Most importantly, regular customers began to form, people whose names and preferences I came to know, whose lives intersected with mine through the simple, beautiful medium of food shared in a welcoming space. A month after the community gathering event, Sweet Gatherings recorded its first consistently profitable week, a true milestone. The success prompted me to hire my first employee, Jessica, a culinary school graduate who shared my philosophy about food as a means of connection. With help in the kitchen, I could focus more on creative development and the community-building aspects of the business, expanding my vision. My family maintained a cautious distance, occasionally sending messages that revealed they were monitoring my progress from afar. Their communications always carried an undercurrent of surprise at my continuing success, as if they were still waiting for the failure they had so confidently predicted. I responded with polite updates, but no longer felt the desperate, consuming need for their understanding that had once defined me. In this new chapter, I found a quiet, profound confidence growing. Sweet Gatherings was becoming exactly what I had envisioned, not because I had finally won my family's approval, but because I had stopped measuring success by their standards and started living according to my own. 6 months after the community gathering event, Sweet Gatherings had evolved beyond my initial vision in the most wonderful, unexpected ways. The bakery had established itself as a true neighborhood institution, a vibrant hub with regular customers who had become cherished friends, and a reputation that now drew visitors from across the city. The small business grant had funded an expanded kitchen and the welcome addition of outdoor seating, allowing for increased production and capacity. My most meaningful innovation during this period was the creation of Chosen Family Sundays, a monthly event where customers could reserve the entire bakery for a shared community meal. I provided the welcoming space, the bread, and the desserts, while attendees brought their own favorite dishes to share. The concept resonated deeply with people seeking connection in an often fragmented urban environment, fostering genuine bonds. Annie, Marcus, and several other local business owners had become my closest friends and most trusted advisors. We met weekly to share business challenges and victories, supporting each other through the inevitable ups and downs of entrepreneurship. Mrs. Bailey's mentorship network provided unparalleled professional development opportunities. I could never have accessed such wisdom and guidance alone, and her insights helped me navigate complex business decisions with newfound confidence. My relationship with my family entered a new phase during this period, one characterized by careful rebuilding on my terms, rather than a desperate seeking of approval on theirs. The change began subtly, almost imperceptibly, with their gradual acknowledgement of Sweet Gatherings as a legitimate, thriving business rather than a fleeting hobby or misguided phase. The first significant shift occurred when my father, unprompted, attended a special event at the bakery without attempting to offer unsolicited business advice. He arrived alone, observed the operations with his usual analytical eye, purchased several items, and before leaving, offered a simple, "You have built something functional here." From my father, this constituted high praise, a staggering concession. More importantly, he had come on his own initiative and engaged with my world without trying to remake it according to his rigid standards. My mother began stopping by occasionally with friends, a subtle but significant form of social acknowledgement that meant more than any verbal praise. "I told my hospital board about your bakery," she mentioned during one visit, a hint of genuine pride in her voice for the first time. Several of them have become regular customers. Rosy's approach to reconciliation involved professional respect before personal connection. "Your social media presence has serious engagement metrics," she noted during a rare Sunday visit. "My team actually referenced your community building strategy in a recent presentation." Later, more quietly, she added, her voice softer, almost vulnerable, "I think I've been comparing our accomplishments since we were kids. Maybe we could just be sisters instead of competitors." Tyler made the most dramatic gesture, flying in from New York specifically to visit the bakery. He arrived with his usual spreadsheets, but also with uncharacteristic humility. "Your financial trajectory has defied standard industry projections," he admitted, his analytical mind finally accepting undeniable data. "I was working from models that did not account for the community investment factor you prioritized. There are some lessons here for traditional business approaches." I welcomed these overtures with cautious optimism. The wounds from their absence at my opening and their subsequent intervention attempt had healed, but they had left scars, indelible reminders. I established firm boundaries around how we discussed my business and my choices, making it explicitly clear that respectful engagement was welcome, while controlling or dismissive behavior was not. "I am open to rebuilding our relationship," I told my father during a particularly honest conversation, my voice steady. "But that requires acceptance of who I actually am, not who you wish I would become." The most profound healing in my life, however, had nothing to do with family reconciliation. It came from the liberating realization that my worth was not, and never would be, determined by their validation. The journey from desperately seeking their approval to finally finding my own measure of success had transformed me in ways that extended far beyond business ownership. As Sweet Gatherings thrived, I expanded the space to include Eliza's Corner, a special, warm area featuring my grandmother's photo, her cherished recipe books, and a small library of baking resources. This space quickly became the heart of our community outreach programs, including free baking classes for underprivileged youth and a weekly senior citizens coffee gathering, a place of connection and joy. A year after opening, Sweet Gatherings was proudly featured in a national publications article on community-centered business models driving neighborhood revitalization. The writer highlighted not just the exceptional quality of our products, but the intentional cultivation of connection that made the bakery truly special. "Marshall has created more than a successful business," the article concluded. She has established a template for how commercial spaces can foster genuine community in an age of digital isolation. On the first anniversary of Sweet Gatherings, we hosted a joyous celebration that filled the bakery to overflowing and spilled out onto the sidewalk. My family attended, not as central figures or revered guests, but as participants among many, taking their place in the wider community that had so warmly embraced my vision. As I looked around at the gathering that evening, my heart full, I realized how perfectly the reality had come to match the name I had chosen. Sweet Gatherings had indeed become a place where sweetness, both literal and metaphorical, brought people together, fostering genuine connection and warmth. The journey had not followed the path I initially imagined, marked by familial approval, but it had led to a destination far more meaningful, more authentic, than I could have ever planned. The most valuable lesson I learned throughout this transformative year was not about business strategy or even about baking techniques. It was about the fundamental nature of validation and the true source of confidence. My family's initial inability to recognize the value in my dream had initially seemed like the greatest, most insurmountable obstacle to my success. In reality, it became the powerful, undeniable catalyst for my most significant personal growth. Sometimes, our dreams succeed not despite family disappointment, but precisely because it forces us to find our true strength, our own unwavering voice. When external validation disappears, we are compelled to learn to trust our own vision and values, to be our own biggest champion. That painful, often isolating process of separation and self-trust ultimately leads to more authentic, more fulfilling achievement than any success that comes through simply conforming to others' expectations. As the anniversary celebration wound down, I found a quiet moment to thank the people who had truly supported my journey, not with grandiose speeches, but with the simple, honest connection that had become the hallmark of Sweet Gatherings. I would love to know if any of you have experienced something similar in your own lives. Have you ever had to choose between following your passion and meeting others' expectations? Did you find your own version of chosen family along the way? Tell me what you think. I really want to know what your experiences have been.